As provinces in this country try to reopen their economies gradually and get things moving, we know that there are industries that are going to have a bit of a tougher time trying to recover. Will they ever recover? I'm thinking about, of course, tourism and hospitality and the sea change we could see in those areas. Pedro Barata is the Executive Director of the Future Skills Center, and he joins us now. Pedro, let's start there. These are the industries that are obviously going to have to find a new way forward, and it's not going to be an easy path.
Absolutely. What lies on the other side remains a bit of an unknown. And we're starting from a place where 60% of businesses within the hospitality industry are currently temporarily closed. Of those that remain open, about half report that they are about 3 months away from also closing temporarily. And there are widespread layoffs. And let's keep in mind, too, that this is an industry that employs a workforce that includes young people, newcomers, women. And some of these groups don't necessarily have just the personal assets or connections or just individual capital to be able to just bounce back. So focusing on these industries and how we're going to help those workforces stay anchored and be ready for the future is going to be key.
What can we do for these workers? We think of everything Ottawa has been doing so far, and the real push from the Prime Minister, of course, is to get people off of the emergency response benefit, get back to work, get employed, and have employers avail themselves of the wage subsidy. But if your business is linked to tourism and it is just largely gone, I don't imagine a wage subsidy makes much of a difference.
Well, for now, I think that subsidy is important for the workers that are displaced, but we have to start looking ahead, absolutely. And the worst thing we can do in the face of an unknown future is sit on our hands, and we have to be in a state of readiness. And that's why we at the Future Skills Center are partnering with OTEC and with the Tourism HR Council to really launch a strategy that puts in place 3 building blocks. Number one, to reach out to the displaced workforce, make sure that they are accessing services and supports that are available. Very importantly, to map what are the skills and the skills gaps that exist within that workforce, so that as the recovery comes into focus, we're prepared, right, to know what reskilling and upskilling is required. The second building block is that we have to be ready to prototype and act fast when it comes to seizing opportunities, figuring out what works and what doesn't in terms of reskilling. And then third, make sure that that knowledge and really understanding what needs to be in place can be replicated across the province. So we're establishing a new digital hub that will really help both workers connect with the training and employment opportunities that emerge, and also for employers to have an opportunity to weigh in and say, hey, this is what I'm missing, this is what I really need, or this is the kind of cohort of workers that I'm going to need, even if it's just a temporary situation.
Do you find, Pedro, when it comes to workers, even outside of this crisis and the upheaval we've seen in the labor force, sometimes they don't realize that the skills that they have from the job that they're in are transferable? I think a lot of us sort of get stuck in the framework, I know how to do this one thing, I don't know how to do anything else. Obviously, that's not true.
That's correct. And you know, we haven't done a good enough job of actually mapping skills and how they are transferable from one industry to another. And let's be frank, these days, social and emotional skills, for example, are so key right across any industry. And the ability to work in teams, to be resilient, to have global competencies that help you work with people of all kinds of backgrounds and all kinds of abilities. It's those kind of skills that cut across. And we tend to put ourselves into these boxes, right, that are focused on occupations and, you know, what I originally trained for in school or in university. And that's not going to be the new reality moving forward. We have to do a much better job in terms of connecting those dots. And maybe the recovery is one opportunity for us to just start to look across and start to connect some of those dots for people.
Pedro, I'm curious what you've been hearing as you talk to different industries and employers about the CERB program, that response benefit, the emergency. There has been some concern that it might be, I don't want to say too generous, because it helped people at the moment of need, but it could dissuade people from going back to a job where ultimately they were getting less than the CERB.
Critical public policy question, and we are, I think, right at the beginning of being able to answer that. I will just take a page from the hospitality sector. It's a sector that employs a lot of populations that may not even be eligible for EI, that do not bring a lot of personal assets into just transitioning through these times of being laid off. And we have to be very careful that we don't just turn the switch on and off for populations that are right now going to be facing a lot of hardship and where a job isn't just around the corner. So finding that public policy balance, I think, is going to be key. I think, the principle that we've adopted so far in terms of the health crisis and us being all in this together is a very important principle for us to carry forward as well as we head into an economic recovery. One of the distinguishing facets of this recovery is that it looks different from, it's going to look very different from previous recessions. It's not construction and manufacturing and those jobs that tend to be better paid that are going to be facing the hardest bounce back. It's actually going to be jobs where you have a workforce that's more precarious, be it in retail or in hospitality. So we have to take great care in ensuring that we don't let people fall through the cracks.
Pedro, thanks for joining us. An important discussion to be had there.
Thanks very much, Greg.
Pedro Barata is the Executive Director of the Future Skills Center.